In this video, we will be reviewing the configuration manager within the Steltronic Focus NEX system. Configuration manager is where you do a majority of the configuration of the system, including various things as far as point of sale, various settings in the system. That we have several tabs going across the top that you can click on and make changes to the configuration. The first tab that we come to is the center tab. This has information about your center. It'll have your center name, how many pairs of lanes you're licensed for. You can put in the address and phone number, which this information will show up on your reports, on your receipt. There's some different settings for cycling pin setters, whether or not tax is included in the pricing and how that tax will be calculated, single item tax, group by, or threshold mode. So there's some different settings there. Um, Deducting coupons before tax calculation allows you to deduct the value of a coupon, and then after that value has been deducted from the total, then it will calculate the tax. And so there's some different things you can do as far as the tax calculation on that setting. Allow go back from the cash register. This is a newer feature that was added a few years ago, and it allows you, once you get to the cash register screen, if this is checked, it allows you to go back to the previous screen and either make a change to the point of sale products that were added, or go back to the bowling rates and make a change to the lane settings and what you're actually collecting money for. Because sometimes the customers will change their mind once you get to the collection screen. So this will allow your employees to go back. On the lower portion of the screen, we have workstations and we have the plugins. So the workstations let you set up which workstations are assigned to the system. If you have more than one, they'll be listed here. And typically that will be set up before the customer receives the entire system. And then we can customize which items on these plugins are going to be displayed on the left-hand side in your taskbar. So on one workstation, you can have a majority of the plugins or modules that we have on the side. On another workstation, you can configure only the items that you want. So for example, PC3 could be a workstation in your snack bar, and all you want is the point of sale, cash register, and configuration manager. So depending on what items you want to be available on these screens or point of sale workstations, you can add and remove items from the list. If we needed the restaurant module, for example, to be added, we can click the plus. We can come in here and choose restaurant. We can rearrange the order, move it up. We can change the name on it. So we can say restaurant/tabs. And now we have another item that's going to be listed on the side in the taskbar on PC3. And so you can configure these and hit save. Now they'll be there. If you did have items, for example, in the IBCMS, you could have items that only management will be able to get into. For example, the advertising manager and configuration manager, products and rates, reports. You could still have them on a PC, but only the employees that have security access to these modules will actually be able to get into them. And so sometimes it's good to have some of the configuration items on every PC so that a manager, if he walks up to a PC and there's a problem, he can configure the system right there on that PC. Next, we have the licensing information, which is only for Steltronic to access. Database management is the next tab. So here we have a backup management, so we can set up a folder or directory to store the backups. We can also make a secondary copy, so you can set the location of either an external drive or thumb drive, or you can set the location to a secondary PC. Typically, we set PC2 to be the default location for another backup copy, but it just depends on the computer and the location as to where that copy is going to be made. If you don't have a secondary PC like PC2, then it would be advisable to add an external hard drive or a thumb drive, USB drive that you can copy the backups and store them on an additional drive. So if you have a problem with your computer and the hard drive crashes, you still have a backup. If you're copying to another computer, you may need to enter the username and password for that computer, and you can tell it how many backups to store, and it'll automatically delete the oldest one. How often is it going to do the backup? What time is it going to do the backup? We typically recommend sometime in the early hours of the day. If you're leaving that computer turned on, then it'll back up automatically in the middle of the night, and the automatic backup is activated. You can also do a manual backup at any time, and it tells you when was the last time that the backup was performed. We also have a button here which is the stop training mode session. This stop training mode allows the center to turn off the training mode. So right now my server is on training mode active. That means that any transactions, anything that I do in the system other than configuration stuff, the configuration is saved, but any financial transactions, any game history, any reservations, all of these things are deleted when you stop the training mode, because the system thinks that you're training and you want to just remove all of that information. And so something very important to do when you first get your system. Old data deletion is a data archival system, so it basically will delete old information from your database. And we have three different types of data: commercial data, game data, and other data. Commercial data allows you to delete all the financial transactions from the database. And if we go to the right hand side, we can see some settings for how much data is it going to store. So right now, and by default, our system is set to 1 year and 6 months. Okay, you can change this to store as much information as you want. We need to bear in mind that depending on the size of the center and how busy you are, would have a bearing on how much information you want to keep in the database, as to not make the database so large. Same thing applies to game data. You would only want to keep as much game data as you really need to store in order to be functional. If you don't have leagues, you may only want to keep a month's worth of game history. It stores every throw, every frame, every detail of the scoring and the game data. Other data has a bunch of other information, for example, reservations and old information that is no longer needed. Here on the left-hand side, we can say whether this is enabled and what time are we going to perform this old data deletion. Normally, we want to set it after the backup has been completed so that if something goes wrong and you really needed to go back and get something, you can do that. And you can tell it how often you want that to be performed. And we do have a delete now button if somebody wanted to delete information or delete all data, they wanted to delete all of the data from the system. And down at the bottom right, we have a save button so we can go in and save any changes that you make. Next, we have the holidays, closing days, opening time. Here you can set days that could be a holiday, so July 4th, and you can set that day as a holiday. Now the system can choose a holiday rate. A lot of times this can be used, for example, designating days that are a holiday that fall on a Monday, and the center wants to charge weekend pricing or a special rate. And so here we can select holiday, you can put in the name of the holiday, and now that day will be designated as a holiday. You can also designate days that you're closed. So if you're closed on Christmas, you can check the box closed. And for Christmas, if you were closed every year on Christmas, you can check the recurrent every year, and it would know automatically that every December 25th, you're closed. And this way, the reservations will not be able to be made on that day because you're closed for business and the system knows that. On the right-hand side here, we have our operating hours, and you can set what time for each day, and you can set, if you needed to, on Fridays and Saturdays, you can set this to be like 1 a.m. if it's on Thursday, if you're closing after midnight. This will allow the reservations to work properly and be able to make reservations during this time frame. And also for your receipt history, this comes into play to show what hours to show for your receipts for that day. And so there's a couple things there that you need to bear in mind when setting these up. And we have get holidays from internet, remove holidays, and you can save these settings. The next tab is for devices. Devices is where we can configure all of the devices that are connected to our workstations at the front desk, point of sale, wherever they may be. We can set receipt printers. So you can set up the printers and set the different settings for that printer. How many spaces or eject lines before it does a partial cut or total cut of the receipt, if you wanted to do that, if your receipt printer had that capability. Down at the bottom, we can set order printers. So you can set up a kitchen ticket printer and set the settings for that printer. Also, you can tell it to print the order also on the receipt printer, which, as it says here, it's useful for the customer if you wanted to print a second little copy right there to hand to the customer so they know exactly what was ordered and be able to use that to claim their order. Customer display is where we can set up a poll display. Cash drawer is where we set up the cash drawer that's assigned to that workstation. If you have a cash drawer connected to the workstation, it would have the cash drawer name and you can select from the cache drawers that are set up in the system. You can click on manage to manage which drawers are set up. Okay, we have another video that has some detail on this, but you can add and remove cache drawers. You can tell it if a cache drawer is a wallet, which would be more of a virtual cache drawer. For example, servers that walk around with a cache belt, and so they would have their own. And you can, if you selected is wallet, then you would type in or choose the user that is going to be assigned to that wallet. And so from your list of users, you can select who is going to be using that drawer, virtual drawer or wallet. So you can check that box. If we click on the plus in front of it, you can also make sure that that drawer is enabled for all the users. And down below here, we have what kind of a cache drawer is this? Is it a serial cache drawer, printer driven, or another type of serial, which is a specific type? Here in the US, we typically use the printer driven. For customers that have upgraded from our Win system, they may be using a serial connected cache drawer. For the most part, our US customers are using printer driven, which means the cache drawer is connected to the receipt printer. And so the little cable plugs into the receipt printer, and that's how the cache drawer works. Then we have some other settings here as far as device, if it was hooked up to serial port, pulse time, and sensor enabled is how the drawer recognizes when it's been closed. In order to close out the transaction, there's a little sensor in the drawer, cache drawer that we use. Also, we have assign installed drawers to users, and we have this working drawers button here. So after you have created a user, a new employee, you can add them to whichever cache drawers they need to have access to. And so you would check the box next to their name. So if we went to PC3 and go to drawer 2 and working drawers, John Smith only works at the front desk, and PC3 is our snack bar computer. So he does not need access to that cache drawer on drawer 2. But if he did, then you would just check that box. In some centers, some employees only work at one area, and so this is the way that you can keep them from opening up the cache drawer on other workstations by assigning them to the working drawer. Anytime you make changes, again, you want to hit save down at the lower right. Card readers, we can set up and configure the types of card readers that you may have. They could be a magnetic card reader. They could be a credit card reader. We have a couple different types of credit card and magnetic card readers. So typically we will assist you with setting this equipment up. The fingerprint reader, if you have a fingerprint reader connected, then you want to make sure that all the workstations that have a fingerprint reader connected to them have this digital persona FP reader assigned to them. We also have integrations with some pouring systems for bars. Asbar and Berg are two of the predominant systems out on the market, and we have integrations to them. You can also configure a USB barcode scanner, and all you do is connect your USB barcode scanner, load the drivers, and you can scan a barcode and it will get the barcode scanner configured. We also have a new RFID reader interface, but as you can see, we have to have that connected in order for it to work. And so here you would enter in that information. So that's something that is new. Again, anytime you make any changes to any of this, you would hit the save button. ATG PC is a time game interface, which not many customers are using this in the US, but it's a way to turn on lights or turn on power to devices that are run in your time games. For example, turning on the lights above a billiard table when you hand out that billiard table. Network test is a way to test communication to a lane computer. So you can check the box and hit start test, and it's going to start testing that communication. And it says 5 packets were sent, and the average millisecond delay in sending a signal to that computer and making sure that it's communicating was 60 milliseconds. And so it's a way of testing communication, and sometimes it's more for the technical people. Lockers. So the lockers tab allows you to configure the banks of lockers. So we have the bank name, the position, how many lockers wide by how many lockers high, and the numbering of those lockers. North to south means that they're numbered starting at the top, 1, going down 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can set up the locker rate, and if the rate is monthly or yearly, if it's yearly, you just uncheck that box, and you can set the number of days to alert you that a locker has expired, and the button size, so you can select how big the buttons are on the lockers. You can add banks of lockers or remove banks of lockers. And we can set up the printouts. So we have a way of setting up a canned message here where you can set how you want your locker notice to read. So you can modify this sample that we have in the system and make corrections to it and save it. And now this will be the letter that will be printed out when you go to send the locker notice to somebody who has not renewed their locker. And again, anytime you make changes, you can save it. Mixer elements. So mixer elements are something that you can add to the system for a bar environment. So you can come in here and add mixers to the list and be able to add a price to it. So for example, you can put cranberry juice, and if there was an add-on price for that, you can put that in there, okay, and add that to the list. And so now this will be an item that can be selectable by bar employees as an item for mixers in a drink. And so you can always put those on there depending on how you want to use it. Lane Talk. Lane Talk is a system that was developed in Europe. It's an app that allows you to track scores, keep track of statistical information. You, as the proprietor, can connect your system to Lane Talk by creating a new account. Now, when the bowler comes in, if they download the Lane Talk app, they will be able to connect their app to the bowler on the lane that they're bowling on. It'll automatically link their scores to their account that they have set up as a bowler on Lane Talk. It'll keep their scores, it'll keep their statistics. They'll be able to see ball by ball what they bowled and what their scores were and all sorts of statistical information. It's also something that is going to be more of a social app for bowling, and there's professional bowlers that are involved. And it's something that could attract bowlers to bowl at your center as opposed to another center. Stel pads are a touchscreen bowler console that we have that you can set up and configure. So you would have to have purchased those. Photo Strike is a kiosk that allows you to add bowlers to the waiting list. And so the bowlers can go up to the kiosk and put in their names, put in the shoe sizes, and add themselves to the waiting list without the employees at the desk having to do it. External POS, we have some integrations with a couple different point of sale systems, Micros, Posi, are a couple in the US, there's a couple more in Europe, and we can link items from the external POS to the rates and the point of sale in Steltronic. And so when you open a lane in Steltronic, it can create a ticket or send that over to that other point of sale to collect the money in that other point of sale. Mail configuration. This allows you to configure a mail server and password to send emails from the Steltronic system to another, to like a customer, or sending scores or receipts and various things like that. And so you can configure the mail system, and then you would be able to send receipts and scores by email. And you couldn't save this once you're done setting that, of course. Game Center Manager is something that is set up in Europe. B11 Booking, you can set some settings and defaults for the booking or reservation system. So you can enable the booking system. You can allow overbooking, allow reservations beyond opening hours. So if you had a special event, or if you sometimes will book events after hours or beyond your opening hours. You can set some different defaults for shoes, which fields are required. So the title or the name of the reservation is always required, but do you want to require your employees to enter in a memo or a note? Do you want them to have to enter in names? And so there's some different settings there. You can also set up booking types. So you can set different types of bookings. So if I wanted to add a new one, I can come in here and type in birthday party. I can set a color for this. So if I click on this drop down, I can come in here and set up a specific color that I want to use, yellow, and set this as the default, and then save it. And allows you to set different types of bookings so that you can color code them. And when you go into reservations, you'd be able to easily see what type of reservations you have coming up. You can set some different things, golf, custom bookings, online bookings. So we have some different ways that you can use the reservation systems. Custom bookings allows you to add additional reservation tracking methods. For example, setting up a custom booking for party rooms, or if you had a conference room or some other type of a room, a banquet hall or a dining room that you allow that to be rented out, then you would want a way to put it into your reservation. So you can put that in here. Online booking, we have a couple different ways of doing online reservations. And so there's some different settings in here depending on what which one you're using. We do have online lanes, which allows you to say, I only want so many of my lanes to be available for online reservations. So I want half of my lanes to be available. So I've selected lanes 1 through 10. They could always be moved to a different lane after the reservation's been made. External services, we do have Lane Talk Booking, Easy Reservation Pro. Those are two external integrations that we have. Again, Lane Talk Booking is a new one that is from the same company that developed Lane Talk, and it is something that is new since last year. So if you're interested in that, just give us a call. If I click on the little arrow keys on the side, we can go and move the tabs along here. The next tab is the tournaments. So the tournaments allows us to set some automations and some different settings and defaults for the CDE import options. And so when you're importing a league from CDE, do you want it to set automation for the leagues? Do you want to set Dutch League import mode? Do you want to map CDE players as tournament members? And so you can set some different things there. So the automation time unit, you can set how many seconds or minutes. And then to the right, we have automation units, which is how many seconds. If I have seconds turned on, and it will turn off the lanes after 30 seconds if the automation is turned on. We also have a delay in milliseconds between multi-lane commands, and so you can set that up as well. That means that when the lane's set to practice, not all of them will come on practice all at once if you did not want that to happen. So there's some different settings that you can set up here. At the bottom, we have some tournament options where you can map the tournament players as frequent bowlers. You can also automatically switch to game mode when practice is over by checking this box. And you can skip mapping if you have one of these options here as far as vacant sub. And also there's some other tournament categories down at the bottom here that you can set. Again, we would just hit save when we're done setting these options. At the top, if we click on gift card, this is where you can set some options up for the magnetic cards and gift cards. So we have print gift card info on the receipt, print the gift card credit left if greater than 0, print the gift card expiration date if present, print gift card IDs if multiple are used in the same transaction, and print gift card games left if greater than 0. And we can set up templates for when your gift cards can be used. So we can click on new and set up another template. Right now we have it set to always, but if you wanted to set a template for Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, or something like that during the day, then you can set up a template where gift card can only be used during that time. For example, if you were setting up some promotional gift cards that you're giving away or something. Whenever you're finished, again, we need to click on save. Cash register. The cash register allows you to configure how the cash register module is going to be used within the system. So we can skip cash register collection screen altogether. This is if you are using another point of sale, then you don't want it to go to the cash collection screen. You can use a gift card as default instead of checks. If you don't accept checks, you may want to change that to gift card. Show rates detail on the receipt. This is where you can type in a footer for the bottom of the receipt. So you can put in your website or any other marketing information you want to print on the bottom of the receipt. You can select how you want the receipts to work. Do you want it to always print the receipt, never print the receipt, or ask you every time you do a transaction if you want to print the receipt? And so you can select which option you want. If you don't want to print the receipt every time, you can click never, hit save, and now it's not going to print the receipt. You could always go to the cash register and reprint any receipt that you really needed to if a customer came back to the desk and said, oh, I need a receipt. Print taxes separated on a sale receipt. So if you wanted it to group all of your taxes together, if you have several, you can uncheck that box and it would group them together. Print cashier ticket for magnetic card or account amounts. So if you're doing magnetic cards using accounts, then typically you want it to print a little cashier ticket that they can put in the drawer and keep track of that. Print barcode, if you wanted it to print a barcode on the receipt. Print credit card account signature. So if you doing credit cards, you want it to print a signature, but we don't necessarily need the signature on a pre-bill. A pre-bill is a receipt that you could hand to the customer like in a restaurant environment. So you can uncheck that box. Max number of printable items before compacting. So if you're wanting to make your receipts smaller, you can use this and it'll truncate the receipt if there's a lot of items on that receipt. Send receipt by email as default, so you can set a subject and the body of the email if you have the email configured, and it'll automatically send that receipt by email as a default. Cash drawers. So when we're working with the cash drawers at the beginning of each shift or batch, it will prompt the employee to enter an opening amount, how much money the cash drawer has in that drawer when you're starting. If you want that to automatically be entered at the beginning of the shift, if it has not been entered the first transaction, it's going to prompt the employee to enter in the opening amount. At the end of the day, when you go to do your Z and ZZ reports, it'll check to see if the opening and closing amounts have been entered. If you're not worried about that, then you can just uncheck these, all three of them. Coupons. So coupons is where you can set fixed dollar amount coupons. So you can see we have a couple in here and you can set what the amounts are for these. So if you had a $25 Groupon, you can put that in here. You can put barcodes. You can say when they're allowed to be used, okay, and set dates and times and time slots. And you can add and remove coupons. So this gives you a lot of control over your fixed valued coupons. Pre-calculated gratuity. This is used in a restaurant type environment, but you can set the gratuity percentage. Restaurant seats, gratuity threshold. So if you're in a restaurant and you wanted to set 4 or more or 8 or more, whatever amount of people, you can set the number of seats and apply a tip automatically. Again, this is in the restaurant environment. Rounding, so you can set your totals to round to the nearest, round up or round down. Typically, this is for centers where they may not use pennies, or some you can set this individually to each workstation. So if you only work with quarters in the bar, you can round it to the nearest quarter and you can hide the rounding on the receipt. And then we have some credit card options. PC charge is our old credit card option. EMV settings is the new credit card options that we have for processing credit cards through Mercury, or now it's called WorldPay. And so you can set up the merchant account information and any other information there. And then we have external POS settings. So we have a couple different options in here. Micros, Ultima POS, StockLink, and we do have a new one for POSI, which is another point of sale. So you can set those settings up in there. Restaurant, this is where you can configure the dining areas or the rooms or different areas that you want to use in the restaurant, or tabs module. So here we can say which areas we're using. So if we're not interested in using this party tabs anymore, we can uncheck that. Okay, if you wanted to designate an area as lanes, you can check the box under lanes saying that this is a place to run tabs for the lanes. And you can set the bar tabs or cafe or snack bar tabs, and you can say how many tables, or essentially how many tabs can you run. So I can run up to 50 tabs right now, and I can increase this as much as I want. And you can set an image for the buttons in the tabs if you wanted to as well. And again, we got to save this. Anytime you make any changes to this restaurant module, you do have to restart your lane service manager on your server in order for those changes to take effect. Inventory configuration. This is a place where you can go in and set inventory. This is a place where you can go in and set the lowest and near out of stock values for any items that you want to run inventory on. The next tab over is the point of sale. So the point of sale is very important. This is where you can set up the screens for the point of sale. After you have entered in the products and the prices, then you would come in here and you can add and remove items from the various screens. So if you click on the different tabs up here, you can see the various screens that are set up on your point of sale. We can set how many rows and columns. So if I wanted to add more rows, I can come in here and add more rows or more columns. And now I have more area here to add or move items to. So I can click on an item and drag it and just move it very easily. I can also go up here, click on the plus next to restaurant or pro shop, and add and remove items. So if I wanted to add a Philly cheesesteak to this screen, I can do that. I can drag, click and drag items over. So makes it very easy to configure your screens. You just drag and drop them. You can shift things around very easily by just clicking on it and dragging it and letting go of the mouse button, and it will add it on there. You can change the color of the button for the snack bar. So each one of them has a color there. You can set the grid pattern, how many buttons you can fit on each screen, depending on what you needed. You can confirm closing. You can show product stock values, forbid sale if out of stock, and also sell without pouring system. You can click on the X and remove one of these little point of sale screens, or you can add additional point of sale screens and change the name of it. So you can come in here and add one that says leagues. And now this is going to be used for league payments. And I can set up a grid pattern in here and then add my point of sale products, one for each league if I wanted to keep track of the various leagues. I can also move things around. So if I wanted the snacks and breakfast to be there and keep the pro shop and leagues next to each other, and then you can save it. You can also copy from, and if you have a configuration saved on one of the PCs, then you can go and copy the configuration that you've set up. Instead of having to redo it on every PC, you would just copy from and select the PC you want to copy from and hit copy. And again, anytime you make changes here, it prompts you if you want to save it, but you want to make sure that you save it. You can also hit add to grid if you selected an item. Add to grid, it just adds it to the first available grid square, or add all. It'll add all the items that are remaining here. It just puts them in there all in whatever order they were in under the restaurant here. Time games allows you to configure the time games in the system. So billiards, golf simulators, indoor golf, shuffleboard, volleyball. You can tell it how many units you have. So if you have 4 billiard tables, do you want it to print a ticket? Printing a ticket will print out what time they started and you give it to them. And this way they know, okay, they're on table number 1 and their time started at 7:15, whatever time it was. You have some more advanced features that you can do on here by clicking advanced, and it gives you more information on if it's prepaid or not. Um, you can set up plugins, and so that gives you some more capabilities of setting up which items are there or not and how you're using them. Laser tag, we did develop a laser tag option where you can use this system to collect money for laser tag, and it will print out a ticket. You can set how many players, the duration, the interval between slots, the start time, and the end time for each day of the week. And so this allows you to configure the system to collect money for laser tag. Advertising management. This is the old way of running the advertisements for the system. So now we do have the new advertising manager. So this is no longer used. Lanes allows you to set some default settings for the lanes and configure your lanes, creating large icons or images on the lanes controls, delays between multiple commands, printing the waiting list receipt. So if you put someone on the waiting list, it'll print out a little ticket that you can hand to them. Allow members to play without a card. If you have a player that's on the membership and they have money or discounts or something along those lines, You can allow them to play without having to show their card, and it allows you to search that player. Okay. If we click that box, you see this other one shows up that says disable automatic member search. So if you're typing in their name, it'll automatically search out their name. Or if you wanted to disable that, you could, and you would have to go in and search by clicking on another button. Here we have a default setting for email subject and email body if you're sending scores by email. And then we have defaults for prepaid, shoes, socks, frame or time if you're doing by the game or by time, how many frames or how much time you want to be defaulted, and the added player status, whether you want it to be active or deferred or skipped. Typically, it's going to be active or deferred. When you add a player to a lane, you want to set the default for that. And then you have some defaults for booking search and bowler's name change policy for tournament and leagues and membership, whether or not you want to allow that to take place. And then the lane pairs that will be managed. And then some common settings down at the bottom, which allow the open lane start time for bowling rates, or use the closing time from lane for bowling rates. Typically, this is used in a post-paid environment. If you are wanting to use the start time or the closing time, or split the payments across multiple time zones where it prorates the pricing. So there's some different options there. Allow payment of deleted throws. So if somebody's deleting throws on the lane, you can set it to automatically charge for those throws. And we have use alternate rates. Open payment without details will bring up the payment rates screen without the details of bowling, shoes, and socks and coupons. It'll give you a more concise view, and you can always uncheck the box at the top and it'll give you the detail. Show players with child rates with different color on the lanes. So if this is checked, then any rates that you have designated as a child rate, some of the scoring grid styles will change color on the lane to designate that a child rate was used for a particular player or all the players. This allows management to see visually on the lane that somebody was given a child rate. Minutes to notify the approaching time is ending for time bowling, and games to notify the approaching end of game for frame bowling. So if you don't want it to notify that their game is ending or time is ending, you can set these to 0. In some of these settings, you have to go to each PC that has the lanes manager on it and make sure that the settings are set the way that you need them. It's not a global setting. Pin setters. These are some settings, more technical settings on the pin setters that we have in the system. So these are parameters that you can set, and typically if you need to change anything in these settings, you contact Steltronic Tech Support and we will assist you with any of these settings. If you have any questions on anything like this, just give us a call. So this concludes the configuration manager. There's a lot of items in here, but your center may not be utilizing all of these. If you have any questions or you need assistance, please give us a call and we'd be glad to answer them and help you get things configured the way that you need them. Again, thank you for your time and have a great day.